Very, very, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Abhijit Ray. With over 28 years of diverse experience in development finance, commercial banking, and microfinance sector, he co-founded Unitas Capital, which provides capital for businesses to scale, innovate, and deliver deep social and environmental impact. Previously, he worked in SIDBI and SBI before co-founding Unitas Capital. During his stint in SIDBI, he led SIDBI's transformational role into the Indian microfinance space. Abhijit has co-authored various articles on microfinance and impact investing in international journals and is regularly quoted in leading national dailies in the country. Holding a bachelor degree in economics from Calcutta University and a certified associate of IIBF Mumbai, he has also attended the School of Applied Microfinance program in Kenya and the program on strategic leadership for microfinance at the Harvard Business School. Abhijit has a passion for sports and loves to play whenever he gets time. His favorite sports are cricket, football, badminton, and table tennis. A very, very, very warm welcome, Abhijit. Thank you for coming in my show.
Thank you, Sangeeta. It's a pleasure and also a privilege to be live on you on this chat. I think, so nice introduction you gave about myself. I don't think, I deserve so much, but good to hear that from a Unitas Capital perspective and you see inclusive. I mean, whatever you're saying, market knows this, that we have done quite a bit of contribution to the development of the impact sector. And, we'll continue to do that in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Abhijit, I have known you for last almost a decade and your life has been very inspirational to many. Having a very, very humble beginning, losing your father at a very early age, managing to fight all the odds out to leading countries, one of the prestigious investment banking arm. What a journey it has been. Did your childhood play an important role for you to frame your big vision as you are leading today?
Very, very interesting question, Sangeeta. I think it's important to share a few snippets from my journey, especially my childhood, as you have rightly asked. See, your vision, your thinking process gets shaped a lot as you grow up as a child, because the learning in your childhood helps you to think differently, right? So I think I'm from a very lower middle class family. My father came from Bangladesh with nothing in his hand, literally nothing. And then from there, we slowly started to build our small abode in India. We moved from different cities, from Raipur in Chhattisgarh, where I was born, to Kolkata, where I grew up. About next 10 years of my life. So I think a lot of learning, because the places we lived, the amenities to the struggles of life was not only for us, but the people lived around. And when I was delivering a keynote address in the first impact event in Australia, impact investing event, and they asked me how it all came to me, and I said that, see, as you grow up, there are a lot of learnings. One of the learning is that do you have water? I mean, so in our houses we didn't have water; those just coming through pipeline. Today we think it's so easy to get a water, but believe me, in most of the India, pipeline water at home is still not available. So we were also, I'm talking of 40-50 years back, so the water was not at home, so we had to fetch water from a hand pump, and and that's the water we used to drink. So today you will think, wow, you didn't have a filter or anything. And for us, the natural filter was to put potassium permanganate, KMnO4, as you probably know, in the well, and from that we used to take water. So what that taught me is that commodity is scarce, and everybody don't have access to it. And then we'll have to find out frugal means to make things portable, like say the water we used to purify through this KMNO4 or potassium permanganate. I mean, these are very simple solutions, and we survived today to 51 years now. So I think those are frugal, small solutions. If you can provide, to people to have it access in an easier way, I think that's what could be ground changing. So I think things like this shaped a lot. Like when you have scarcity, you know the value of everything. So you become very, very conscious about how much you spend, on what you spend, how you manage your cash. So I think things like that, definitely had a huge impact. And my father was an amazing person. He always, imbibed certain things. Even we had this scarcity always, but he never, allowed us, our spirits to go down. He was always keeping us motivated. He was always coming up with new ideas. And he was a person who always said that learn new tricks. He had a government job, obviously not a, I would say not at a very senior level, but he was at a government job. And when he was at a government job, at least our food was taken care of. But there were other things which we need to, like say, to get even as we know, when we are 2 to 3, and means we were two kids first, then we became 3, and our bed was not big enough. So Dad said, why to get another bed? Why don't you extend this bed? And he bought wood, he cut it, and so he's told us that how to learn to make new things. So anything in house which needs a repair or maintenance or a new thing to be done, which is simple, just try it yourself. So I think he always taught us that come what may, never ever think that you can't do it. Just jump into it and you will learn it. It's a question of your commitment to do something, you will learn it. So I think, coming from, as I said, from nothing, from Bangladesh, my mother and my father both struggled, to keep us going. Mother obviously was a homemaker, but we had 4, siblings. So for her to manage 4 and, get us educated, and father working very hard to meet, our requirements, it was a tough task. So seeing all this, I think our thought process also, moved in a certain direction, and that definitely helped me to, shape my dreams today, or my thoughts today.
What a beautiful journey. In fact, when you were telling the story, I literally had goosebumps, like literally from nowhere, and learning this biggest value from your parents, and learning to live through and kind of hurdle through all the scarcity to find every solution. I think that defined you so beautifully. Thank you for sharing that personal, powerful story. Really appreciate it. It means a lot.
Thanks, Sangeeta.
It is really, really a very, very touching story. On that note, Abhijit, I would like to know, you had a very exciting journey. You started your career in SBI Kashmir, I think way back in 1993-94. And that era is considered to be one of the roughest time. How did you manage to navigate through that tough time when you know that you may not see tomorrow again? Did it give you a very different perspective of life? What was that lesson from there?
Interesting. There are two parts to the answer. One is why did I land up, probably. So first and foremost is coming from a middle class family. That there are 2 dream jobs. Because you can't even dream of becoming an engineer, doctor so easily. I mean, there's a tough part of it, because I lost my father early. Who will fund my expenses? I was not like the brightest of bright student that I'll get 100% scholarship. So I knew my limitations, right? At the same time, I wanted to be successful, or I wanted to do something good, right? So there are 2 options for me. One is to become an IAS, other was to become a probationary officer in a bank. And I think I realized that IAS needs a lot of, again, studies and a lot of intelligence probably as well. So I decided that, I think it's better that I'm suited for a banking job. So why don't I try that? And it's much easier. So touchwood, nature has been kind, and I had got all the support to crack this examination at a time in multiple banks, and decided to join SBI, because those days SBI was considered to be the best job in banking. So, and I landed straight away into Kashmir, and it was a batch of, almost 13, 15, 14 people who landed up in Kashmir. And it was a very interesting journey. So it is not that I had picked up because I had, it was multiple choices, and I had picked up Kashmir. Kashmir came by by default and not by design, right? But when you are put in a position, and I'll give you a very interesting example here. The day we landed to join, and we were in our regional office in State Bank in MG Road, and our security officer was chatting with us. It was Mr. Some major Mr. Singh, and when we was discussing a lot of things with him on the corridors of the office, all of a sudden it was 1993, the peak of militancy, right? Insurgency, I would say as well. So a bomb blast happened. I mean, the grenade blast happened in the ground floor. So we were in the third floor, and we were in the corridors of the third floor. So what happens is the impact of any grenade is very strong. So it literally shakes, some of the buildings there. So we literally ran for our lives inside. And that was, I think, so interesting was our security officer. He said, "Arey, young man, this is how you're welcomed. Think of it. This is only a welcome celebration for you. Welcome to Kashmir." So that was his statement. I still remember that. And then you won't believe, one of my batchmates literally cried, said, "Where on earth I have landed up? I shouldn't have been here." But never, I had no remorse. I had absolutely no. I thought that, okay, if life has offered you, sometimes you say it's offered you in a platter, and I say, okay, let's take it as in a platter only, that whatever has been offered, and why don't we make the best out of it, right? So those 2 years of Kashmir has been wonderful. I would say one of the best part of my life. Obviously, the Wadi of Kashmir, the paradise on earth, is beautiful, no doubt about it. And at the age of 22, when of all the beautiful Kashmiri women around you, also feels good, So I think there was both the charm of being in a bank, which I loved the most, and then a beautiful place with beautiful people around to work. So I think instead of getting scared, I said, hey, what? Yeah, I mean, yes, life has a value, tremendous value to our life. But then when you know that certain things you can't control, why you are trying to run after things you can't control? What you can control, work towards that. So I think I changed my approach was like, enjoy within the given limitations, learn whatever best you can, and enjoy your stay. I mean, it's such a beautiful place. We had a lot of restrictions to go out, but I sneaked out. Took a scooter, went to Dal Lake, went to the Shikara, and my bosses never knew. I mean, they would have fired me if they knew about this. But I had my own, fun. I thought that within the restriction, whatever you can do with some amount of precaution, enjoy that. So we did trekking, we did some amount of fun, going to marriages. We went to local Kashmiri, even Muslim marriages, which were our, bosses never allowed, because we were very friendly with everyone, and people are very nice there. Militancy is a different game, I must tell you. In general, the Kashmiri people are amazing, I must tell you. Why militancy and all, that's a different subject, but I'm not getting into that. But I think people in general, human being in general, are very nice. And Kashmiris, whether it's a Kashmiri Pandit or a Kashmiri Muslim or a Kashmiri Sheikh, it doesn't matter. People are generally been very nice, and they invited us to their house. We went for their weddings. We had the best of foods. So I would say that it taught us that every individual is good. And I believed in that, but I think it reaffirmed our belief that militancy is a different issue. Insurgency is a government, political, and multiple factors come into that. But in general, every human being is nice. Every human being, doesn't like to be killed or, kill somebody else. It is not like that. There are different reasons for that. But in general, they taught us love. They taught us that we are all together. And I would say one of the best part of my life. So I have spent in Kashmir.
Abhijit, like I have seen you personally, that you turned every negative situation into positive situation. I think there is a saying that our reaction to a situation literally has the power to change the situation itself. And that's what the true testimony about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, on that note, my next question. So, thus after quitting SBI, you joined, I think, SIDBI in Bhubaneswar. And you worked in very smaller town like Gangtok, where you changed the landscape of the business there. Even I heard posting in such small towns, people take it as a punishment quotient, but you turned that into opportunity quotient. I also know during that stint in Gangtok, you did the maximum number of project finance cases. How did you make that happen?
Yeah, I think, it's a function of how you take every assignment given to you. So I was never expecting a posting in Gangtok, to be frank. It came out of the blue. So when it came out of the blue, I was like, oh, I was working in Calcutta those days. They pushed, on promotion, they sent me to Gangtok to head a branch. Obviously, it looked great that I'll be heading a branch. I will have a team of people. And in small branches, you have a luxury. You have a stenographer who will take your, notes. There is a driver who will take you around in a car. There is your deputy as well. There is a clerk also. A whole host of people are there. So what happens is you are given a very nice position. But effectively, I also knew that, Northeast positions are like where you don't do business. You just ensure that your branch is there because there are certain government requirements to open a branch and keep it going. So every Northeastern states, we need to have a branch. But then when I went there, I felt, wow, such a nice place. Why don't I enjoy everything here? And at the same time, build a business, because people generally it is taken as a punishment posting. Generally, people come here to spend their 2 years because they know that after 2 years they will get their home posting, means back to their hometown. And I had no specific interest to go back to my hometown. Neither I was looking to just pass this 2 years somehow. My point was, you are given an assignment. You have a beautiful office, good bunch of people. You have been given resources. You have how many small branches you have the exclusivity of having so many people. So I said, okay, great. Why don't I take this opportunity to think what else can I do? And I must tell you, my team was amazing. I had one assistant manager in the form of Mr. Shripati, who was amazing. He was maybe a year or two older than me, but I saw in him also the spirit of the enthusiasm of doing things. And he was a very hardworking person, very fit and very hardworking. Came from Kerala, but then I said, okay, let's do things. So my job was to get as many business and his job was to execute. So we had a very good equation that I'll run around everywhere trying to get business, and he's the one who will do most of the execution. And believe me, he was amazing. So I think it's again a team effort, but in the process we did a lot of interesting cases. In the process we learned a lot. We traveled to the length and breadth of Sikkim. I think I traveled to almost every taluk level, not even districts, just to run around to understand what we can do. From as simple things as like micro mini hydel projects to Angora rabbit projects to things like doing small project finance cases to hydel power. Everything we explored, and it was a wonderful journey, literally wonderful journey. So it's all about whatever you have been given, try to make the best out of it. Instead of cribbing about it. So I'm not a guy generally crib about work. That again, that's something my father always inspired, that do whatever you are given and enjoy the work. Absolutely. So I think I enjoyed a lot.
The profound thought came out through this conversation that you can't change your situation. The only thing you can change is how to choose to deal with it and convert everything in the right direction. And that's what, very, very, very powerful message I kind of figured out, because every negativity you created a possibility, and that's what makes you who you are. On that note, Abhijit, would love to know, this is more of a personal question. Out of all the places you have worked in SBI and SIDBI, I think 6-7 different smaller towns have been posted. What has been the most treasured moment and treasured stint for you?
It's a difficult question because, see, everywhere I went, I enjoyed. Okay, so the question is somewhere the time was much longer than the other. But I'll give you a few snippets of that to rather than answering straight. So when I was in Srinagar, the journey from Jammu to Srinagar, those days we can't afford to go by flight. So most of the time we took buses, and those buses for 300 kilometers took anything between, 11 to 12 hours, So you 6 in the morning you start and 6 in the evening you reach. So this journey itself was a journey of learning, and then sometimes we had some money to take a cab, and the cabs were around slightly less, about 9 hours journey in the cab. And you won't believe, many of the times our life was saved by a few seconds, like a boulder came through, okay. And, many a times, like one, it so happened I was going from Jammu to Srinagar, the driver all of a sudden stopped the car. I said, "Kya ho gaya?" There are 4-5 of us pulling car. Like, "Kya ho gaya, bhaiya?" Then he stopped and, did a namaz. Means he prayed to God that his life was saved. And I asked him, "Kya hua?" Then he said, "Sir, baal bach gaye. We got saved by a massive boulder, just missed our car. And if it had hit our car, we would have been 300 meters down in the river." And there was no way of surviving, absolutely no way of surviving in that, high speed stream and going down so much. So I said that these are the things, you know that how much of you are dependent on nature so much that nature can decide your fate in no time, right? So why to brag, why to be so proud of things? So I think that was one of the, so my 2 years in Kashmir, obviously some part I was in Karnal for some training and Jammu as well. But those 2 years of Kashmir taught us a lot of interesting things, because we were living sometime at -8 degree temperature, right? How to deal with that type of temperature and still work, how to survive without any, electric heaters, how to just be with some amount of, I don't know, Kangri and Bukhari, those are like coal-fired, heaters type. So things like that. So how people live. So unless you go there, you'll not realize how people live. Like I'll give you another interesting example. We were in the middle of this Hazratbal crisis. I don't know, you were probably a kid then, you may not remember. So Hazratbal was a period when there was a siege in Hazratbal, which is one of the largest mosques in Srinagar. And during this time, it's a fight between the militant and the military. And for 36 days, continuously there was Bandh, literally Bandh. The entire valley was shut down. Now, if you do this in any part of India today without having food and any other supplies, people will die out of hunger because there is no storage. But Kashmiris are known to keep stores with them, like provisions for them for long. So that also taught us that please always think ahead and keep your provisions intact, because you don't know when the difficult days are going to come, right? So they dry their vegetables from tomato to brinjal and all in the summers. In the sun, they will dry it, completely takes out the moisture. They keep it longer, and then they, in the winters, they boil it again and make. So I think this 37 days, we only survived on bare rice and saag. There's nothing available. So that also taught us that, survival instinct should be that whatever you get, you eat, right? And, normally we think of in a plane, we don't even think of those things, right? But there it happened and you survived. So that was a very interesting Kashmir journey. Whereas if I look at Gangtok, we used to travel between Gangtok and, Siliguri regularly, because that was part of the business development. And once while coming, our car got stuck in a shooting zone, and we had to literally leave behind the car and run with our hands over our head as if the stones would, we can save. It was foolish thought, but we ran to save our lives. And the car was damaged to the hilt. It took me like 12 months, almost 9 months to fix the car. So, but we got our lives saved. So I think every moment is a learning, when you live in tough situations, tough places. And living in hills, I think every one of us should get an opportunity to live in hills, that how tough the life is there. Until you live there, you don't know. So I think every place offered its, fun. Like living in Bhubaneswar, I traveled to extreme tribal areas, from one part of Odisha to the other. And the type of things I saw there, from working with weaver communities to working with, tribals on developing projects, was a different experience. So I would say everyone offered me amazing experience, but definitely the Gangtok and the Kashmir life was something different, completely different. I would love to go back there any day.
Such amazing story, Abhijit. I literally was getting my skin into that thought, and no wonder has beautifully articulated that the survival instinct, once it kicks in, you actually start, the humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it is thinking of yourself less. And that kicks in, because being humble is the surest sign of strength, and that sort of comes out when you generally have to fight through the survival instinct and you don't know whether you can see it tomorrow again. Beautiful, beautiful story. I didn't know this part of it, how you navigated through this, tough time, but great story. I know that give you a different learning altogether. Now,
thank you.
My next question, Abhijit, quitting your cushy, comfortable government sector job, which is supposed to be till there is very prestigious, and jumping onto an entrepreneurship all of a sudden. How did that journey happen? Did you face any resistance? And even if you did, I'm sure you did. And how did you navigate through those resistance? How did you make sure when everybody said, no, don't do it? How did you have that grit and power to kind of move through every hurdle and then make it happen?
Very interesting question, Sangeeta. I don't know how much I have shared in public domain about this, but interesting part of it, when you know there's nothing to lose, why should we be fearful, right? I had nothing, when I came to this earth, whatever parents gave, that was everything I had. When I had my SIDBI journey also, it was a 10-12 years journey. I had nothing built or anything. So there was nothing to lose. So I think what intrigued me into this, or what pushed me into this discussion about leaving SIDBI, was that the fun part of the business was going. I mean, see, SIDBI journey of 12 years, out of which I will say that almost except for 7-8 months or maybe few months, I was in a very good position of enjoying my work thoroughly, because I was doing mostly development finance. So whether it was in Sikkim, whether it is in West Bengal or Odisha or even Lucknow, what you see today, the microfinance sector, under our leadership of Mr. Brijmohan, who was our mentor, guide, philosopher, friend, whatever you call him, he's an amazing person. Entire microfinance sector today owes allegiance to him, because without him, building the MFI-based lending model was not possible. So he is the one under whom we work. So having a stellar, amazing, godfather-like figure like him paved the way for us to think that we can do a lot, right? So we can do innovative things. So like he used to always say, "Ki, beta ye kar sakte hain ki nahi? I mean, can we do this?" And he obviously means that he wanted to do this, and he wanted to test us whether that we are ready to do this. So, and he had a very amazing way of motivating us. So he would tell us, "Chalo, isko karte hain," right? And that became a passion. Nahi, isko karna hai, karte nahi, isko karna hai. Means we have to get to the end result. And that means that, going and doing Northeast, a lot of things in Northeast, I went to Leh also, Leh Ladakh, to see how can we explore microfinance. So we are given this assignment by our boss to say, ki, yaar, explore, do things. So the journey was always exciting. And I must tell you today, those days in SIDBI, probably my chairman was not traveling as much I used to. So I had the platinum for Air Sahara, Air India and Jet Airways. That's the level of travel I used to do from a small town like Lucknow, all because my bosses, believed in me and gave me assignments to work around the country. So that obviously paved the way for a lot of our learnings also. So having that interesting assignments to do gave us a lot of freedom to think through different new approaches. So when I was transferred again on promotion from Lucknow to Hyderabad, microfinance or development finance became second fiddle. I mean, it was my first primary job was to look at much more project finance, funding factories, looking at bigger projects, which was not as exciting and interesting. And the opportunity came up to do something on the capital market side. So I said, why not? Give it a shot. So after a bit of, introspection, discussion and all, I thought that, no, I think it is now or never, because I'm already that point of time in 2007, I was already at 36, 37. So already past my prime sort of. So if you have to take a risk, this is the time. So go and explore the world. And obviously, as always, there's nothing to fall back upon. But my father-in-law, who was a bit scared, that he also is as a government servant, he asked me a couple of times that, are you sure? But my wife, I must tell you, my wife was very supportive. She said, as long as you are convinced, I know you will do it. So go ahead. She supported me definitely. If she wouldn't have supported me, it would have been a bit tough. I would have still made it probably. It would have been tough because her support is not there. I couldn't have worked so hard. I mean, she is the pillar who took care of the entire family. And I was the one who was on a missionary zeal to work through all this. So I think there were resistance because from my family, obviously mother believed in whatever I did. So she never questioned my intentions. But obviously from father-in-law's side, it was tough. But leaving a cushy job with a pension, everything, leaving everything like that, not easy. But touch wood, as I said, my well-wisher supported me, my friends supported me, and then all the entrepreneurs I work with supported us to build whatever we have built today.
In fact, when you were talking about this journey of resistance and how your wife supported, I think you redefined that, one quote that behind every successful man, there is a woman. And you had two, in the primary years, your mom, and the, next years, your wife.
No doubt about it. I mean, woman shapes you, literally,
yeah.
I think.
They're the creator, it is the womb of the universe where actually so many discoveries happen, so that's sort
Absolutely.
of, people. Swami Vivekananda said, where the woman is worshipped, that's where you actually see the test of every success, every learning, every discovery.
True.
Beautiful. On that note, my next question to you, Unitas Capital has raised capital for various businesses, which creates, social impact. You raised about close to $3 billion and arranged capital for over 140 plus entities, and also gave loan over 350 crore from your NBFC. Now, you say inclusive credit to over 72 companies. What did you do so different to enable such huge impact?
Actually, I must say that, it's not about what we did so different. Actually, I would put it this way again. I always believe that it's the entrepreneurs who make a lot of difference on the ground, and we are only mere facilitators to take it to the next level. Now, a lot of examples I'll give here, and these examples are important. See, I met an entrepreneur in Northeast. He's a doctor and he has hospitals. Now, he believes that healthcare can be delivered at a very low price and very efficiently. So he built 1 hospital, 2 hospitals. Now he has 4 hospitals. He has a medical university also. And he says that bring poor people from the village in his own vehicle, treat them for 3-4 years. And these are all about surgery cases I'm talking about. Do the surgery, do all the post things, or give all the medicine, food, everything, and then send him back home after 3-4 days. You know what the entire cost is? He says the entire cost is between 15 and 25K. That's all. And he makes money out of it. So what does it prove? That somewhere there is a lot of inefficiency in the system. And people like this are trying to explore it. So I was trying to raise capital for him. I couldn't work directly, but indirectly I did a lot of things, discussions with him. So he says very clear, profit is important to grow, but beyond a point, profit is not so important. That you generate a certain level of profit, make people happy, but don't run after profit maximization. Run after a combination of profit and social maximization. So you cover more people and you are being profitable. So I said, can I get you an investor? His point is, I only need an investor who is happy with a 15% dividend. Now, if you ask from a private equity world, it's difficult for people to agree for a 15% dividend. But he is very clear. He got an investor. He already got an investor. I think Canvan Ventures was his investor. And he every year declared 15% dividend. And they were happy about it. So there are certain specific type of investors who will be happy with that, right? So I think, what was this gentleman doing? This gentleman was changing the landscape. They were saying affordable healthcare services for everyone. Doesn't matter, So, today the same surgery in any hospital costs, 1 lakh to 5 lakh or whatever, depending on the hospital. But he's still democratizing the entire healthcare system. Now, today, as you know that you and I are probably, I don't know you wear, but I do wear specs, as you see. So for us, we are actually trying to fight, protect our eyes from 2 main things, in India, especially for everyone. One is glaucoma and other is cataract, right? And what we are trying to do, we are trying to protect ourselves so that we are not getting blind. But in an urban setup, when you go to a doctor takes you through 4-5 tests, like you do a cornea, you do a retina, you do a pressure of the eyes, and a host of things, right? And he takes you to 2-3 machines. But rural, there is nobody to do that, right? So this entity, and as you know, probably every year 4 million people are vulnerable to become blind in India. 4 million, I'm not joking. And will become blind in India if not treated for cataract and glaucoma. These are pandemics, much larger epidemics or whatever you call it from the eye perspective. So if you don't take care of it, then there's a problem. Like, in rural areas, if you look at it, people walk up to 70, 75 years of age because they're healthy. But if their eyes are gone, they become dependent on the family. So their health-wise, they're okay, but eyes doesn't support. So they become a burden to the family. So, I would have seen also in rural areas, people say that, after a certain age, blindness is fait accompli. You will become blind because you are old. But it is because of cataract and glaucoma. And both the disease, if can be controlled, it can be detected, it can be controlled. But there's no way to detect. So this entity came up with this machine, which can detect by a single photo. And it can be operated by a minimally trained guy. So that's the change this entrepreneurs become. So we are not making the change. The change is being made by the entrepreneurs. Our job is to ensure that we work with these amazing entrepreneurs to get them capital so that they can make a huge change. So we play a catalytic role. So if you think of one company, doing in every part of India, and there are 20 other companies I'm working with. So ultimately the change is massive. The scale effect is massive. So we are a catalyst in the process of bringing money from people who have, the amazing investors, to the great entrepreneurs on the ground who are doing the groundbreaking work. So I think it's a marriage of the money available to the work that is happening on the ground, and how efficiently can we build it, right? How efficiently can we deliver?
Absolutely. Such a part. We didn't know about this fact, Abhijit, that there are 4 lakh people annually can get blind because of the lower availability of resources. And if you are enabling that, there are so many lives, so many families who are saving.
Absolutely.
What a fantastic journey. That's what I think we require, all this capital coming into real impactful, powerful project, and which you are enabling. I'm so glad to be connected. Now, Abhijit, my next question, that I asked to all my guests in my show, generally I kind of showcase the powerful story which has moved people, which has created revolution, which is created in their way. What has been your success sutra for achieving whatever you have achieved so far?
Very simple. I mean, again, I said, no, we make life, if you as simple as you make things is better. So the success sutra for Unitas Capital or UC Inclusive is the team. First and foremost is the team. Okay. And without this team, we couldn't have done anything. Absolutely nothing. I and Eric, my favorite partner, or for that matter, Deepak, we can't do anything without a team. So anything I have done, anything UC has done, anything UCIC has done is all because of the amazing team we have built. Now, it's easier said than done. You can say an amazing team, but how do you build an amazing team? That means every person whom you hire, to invest a lot of time to hire that person, to understand that are they, getting your vision? Are they getting what you are trying to do? Are they getting that this is not just a job? It is job plus, in the sense that there's something else. There's a kick you get because you work with amazing entrepreneurs like the ones I already referred to. So to do that, you mean to build a culture. Culture is very important, and we have never compromised ever on our culture. And I'll give you a few examples of that. Till now in UC, we don't have an HR. Just now because we have grown so much, we are thinking of hiring an HR. Till now, till have a 33-member team and an 18-member team in these two institutions, about 50, plus team member. We never ever had an HR, right? So we manage all these 12 years without a HR, and successfully too. We became the number one investment bank. Why? How we did it? Simple. Invest on the person and, make him responsible to your belief, to your ideology, to what you are trying to do, and why your existence, why your own existence is there. So if you think from that perspective and motivate people, so we made certain things very, very clear. Number one, that, everyone is important in the organization. It doesn't matter you are a peon or you are the MD. Very important. And everyone plays as much a role. There's nothing like I play 100%, you do 80%. No, everyone plays 100% to build this institution. 2, there is, how can we remove the hierarchical structure when it comes to work? What I mean by that is, yes, you need hierarchy, but work means everyone, whether it's a peon doing his work to get a checkbook from a bank, to I'm delivering to a pitch to a client, both the work are important. So the value of that work has to be understood, that every work is important for the organization's survival, right? And growth. Very, very clear. 3 is we are an equal opportunity employer. And, in terms of bring a lot of diversity in the team. Doesn't matter whether you are from Africa, whether from India, we all work together. We believe in having a lot of women team members and to bring diversity. Even in our interview committees, whatever we do, we always ensure there's a woman in every segment of it. Why? Just to ensure that, people who's coming in, they understand that we are a diversified institution. And we also want to give that message to our own team time and again, that reinforce, yes, we are like this, right? And last but not the least is teamwork. We believe in teamwork. Nobody is alone carrying the institution in their shoulders. No, we all do it. We all do it together, and we'll all come to each other's help whenever required. Yes, everybody has been given some responsibility, they have to deliver, but we'll be all together to do it. And sometimes people complain that when you're hiring process, we take a lot of time. But what we are trying to figure out is that the particular person who is joining us is also selecting us, not that we are only selecting the candidate. Why? Because we want to ensure that he or she has understood that whatever, say, he's interviewing with Sangeeta, he likes Sangeeta, Sangeeta is beautiful, Sangeeta speaks well, and get enamored and joins because Sangeeta's job is so exciting. But there is Abhijit also who is tough. There is maybe Amit who is much more tougher, right? And so there are different people you talk in the organization. So we do an interview process where from an analyst to an MD, everybody speaks. Not all the people, but every layer speaks. So we say to the candidate, and I say is very often, Bhaiya, you need to know the jokers you have to work with. Simply the word I use is jokers to work with, because every person is a different type of joker. Why I say joker means joker is a person who performs, right? So a performer, you would know that somebody is very strong in certain things. Somebody is good at relationships and you're talking to everyone. Somebody is very soft in spoken, somebody is very straightforward, right? So you know the type of people. And in investment banking, you don't have a single boss, especially in our organization, you work with multiple people, right? So that also helps you too. So you are actually selecting us. Not only we are selecting you. So this thing they have to understand, and we make it very clear. So cultural aspect and to know each other is very important. So sometimes our interview process takes 5 to 6 months. People do quit, but at the same time, once they come. So we have people who have worked for 10, 12 years also with us, precisely for that reason.
Yeah. I know a few of your colleagues have been my neighbor. And I especially, I have seen when I kind of go to their house, the happiness quotient they bring. And, it just that kind of passion which you have been able to inject through your culture and behavior have been very tremendously, very attracting, because I have seen, people talking so highly about it and they want to go back to work on a weekend. So that talks the volume. In fact,
I think one thing to add, sorry, Sangeeta, is interrupting you, but I think I have missed out on these things, that the other two amazing parts of it is our clients. I mean, we can't praise them. I can't stop praising them. They are really good. I mean, we are blessed. Every client, you can ask me about any client. I'll be so happy to speak, because the type of work they do literally charges you up, right? As I said about these two healthcare companies, I can go on talking about, Vindhya, just to give an example. Vindhya is a BPO which employs people with disability. Now think of this young entrepreneur who started, Pavitra, and then her husband joined. So Pavitra was a BCom graduate. She would have worked in any other small, entity and been happy, whatever, doing accounting functions or whatever. But she decided to go this way. And what she achieved today, Vindhya is one of the leading BPOs doing outsourcing job for mostly financial services companies, whole host of other companies also, and employs 1,500 people, and most of them are disabled. I mean, they call it differently enabled, rightly so. And they're profitable. I mean, they've been there for 10 years. They have created an amazing. So now think of it, by design they did it. So many of these impact companies, by design they decided that they will do this, and not by default that it will become impactful sometimes. See, every business has some impact, but when you do it by design, then by default, right? So that's very important. So think of this entity Vindhya. The way they are changing life of people. People who are not getting jobs, they got them jobs. They have a very, way of grooming these people inside, the training they give and all, the camaraderie within the team, the way Pavitra interacts with each of the team members is a sight to watch. I mean, when you go there, every time I go to that office, I come back fully charged. If I have, so that's
those are the power stories, right, Abhijit? There are certain people who wants to shoulder that and move on. Nothing is stopping us. It's just that sometimes we kind of get cushy and comfortable with whatever it is and don't want to challenge our status quo.
Absolutely. That's very important. Status quo. Don't accept or challenge our status quo. That's it. But right. See, also, I should give credit to the investors. I mean, without them, we couldn't have done this, right? Absolutely. So they have been nice. They have been very supportive. Each and every investor we work with, we had our fights, definitely. We had our disagreements, yes. But I think at the end of the day, they supported. And without them, I think it wouldn't have been easy. So it's a combination of amazing entrepreneurs, very supportive investors, and I would say far-sighted because they can see the distance. That's why they are investing in these companies. Very dynamic, amazing investors. And then coupled with a team which I always say, I mean, today, if I had to give an interview in UC, I'm sure nobody would select me. That's the level of, people we have built. They're so competent, so good. I wouldn't have even got a chance to enter today if I had to. So that's the type of team we have built. So hats off to this combination of all three which worked for us.
I know. I think three very powerful points came out from this conversation. One of them, I have seen and I read somewhere that true leaders don't create followers. They craft more leaders. And what you as your team, you're building, you're crafting leaders every day. And this part of diversity, what you touched in, is about giving value to every human being, no matter what are the difference, because differences bring the real new creation. And no wonder you are actually creating different kind of arena. And the third thing, which also very powerfully came out, as you said, that if you really want to go far, go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And that's Absolutely. What you're creating at the back end, the tribe of people who are equally passionate, equally committed, equally driven to lead the tribe together, along with this client and, the entire network. Great. Thank you so much. It's been a very exciting story so far. Loving it. Not want to feel like ending the show. I have a few rapid fire questions before we end the session, just to create some fun element in this. So if you're ready, should we jump onto the rapid fire?
Please, all yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, I know you have quite a few talent, but what is your hidden talent the world doesn't know?
Nothing, literally nothing. I mean, I'm a very straightforward black and white guy. There's nothing. The only thing I know is I don't carry baggages, So I may be upset with someone, when you work together, you are sometimes upset. So I want this message to go to my team also. They sometimes may feel bad. But see, when work comes, obviously you as a boss, sometimes you have to put up pressure. Sometimes you have to be a bit tough. But end of the day, I don't carry those negative feelings with me. My thing is, it is done after that. I mean, you flush it out. Yeah, done and dusted, you flush it out. So I don't carry baggages because baggages make you heavy. Okay.
And that's a beautiful talent. I know how many people are blessed to kind of let go of things. Many of us, 90% hold on to the past. That 10% who makes a difference.
That bothers you, right? Why to have that? निकाल दो यार. I mean, जो है
जिंदगी आज है काल नहीं, क्यों इतना carry करने का? Just have that momentary theme, drop it and move on. Okay, are you a movie buff or a book lover?
Interesting. I am neither, but between a choice between the two, I read some interesting books, and one of them is like some of the writers who influenced me. Very, very different type of I like Malcolm Gladwell, the true lot of book he has written. One of the best I have read is Outliers. The Blink is also amazing book. So I think I love his books. He has a different way of looking at, and these are all real stories, real life things he put in with lot of analysis. So it has a lot of data into it. So that means it's real, right? So I like that. I like stories of I don't know, you read about Dr. Binayak Sen. He has been put in as a synthesizer for the Maharashtra. He is not actually. That's what my belief is. He changed the healthcare system in Chhattisgarh, right? So involving the people, it's a community-led healthcare system. Dr. Vinayak Singh. It's a story you should read. It's called A Doctor to Defend by a lady called Mini Baid who wrote it. So I think I like this type of stories where even I like the journey of sports person. I'm a big sports buff. So
that's another talent. I didn't know that.
I like stories. I mean, I read Dhoni, I read Saina, I read about Mary Kom, a lot of sports person.
Did you have the passion in reading right from childhood, or you inculcated during?
Actually, today also I'm because my point is for me works come first, then is sports, and then remaining time on other things. So then some amount of time leaves for reading. So because you have to read for office also. So there are certain things you do for yourself. So the reading comes as a third option for me and not the first or second. So my dad was a voracious reader. I mean, he used to read anything and everything under the sun. So is my elder sister. But I picked up reading, but it's not so much. I read only a few books. I pick up a lot from the airports regularly.
And then pick up at least to read a few. I know that sort of reading has a beautiful impact in your thinking and thought process, because your thought becomes your action, and reading kind of helps you to ingrain that small doses of in the thinking pattern. Beautiful. On that note, this is a little funny one. If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would that be?
Badminton.
Oh, wow.
I would love to be a good badminton player because I like that sport. I mean, amazing. Not football, not cricket, because those are different. I mean, badminton is a very small court and you have to be very agile in moving. You have to drop player shots with it needs a lot of intelligence at that point. I know football also needs that, cricket also needs that. But I think the badminton is something I love. I'm very passionate about it. So if given an option, I wanted to be an amazing badminton
player. Maybe someday I'll see you playing badminton.
No, no,
We never know.
thank you, but I'm not a good player at all. I play for sure, but
Yeah, for fun mainly, right? Yes, absolutely. If someone had to play you in a movie, what role it would have you want to play?
Oh my God, what a question. Good, good, good. You are trying to
It's fun, it's
educate
important
me.
to create that fun element sometime, because it's sort of
So,
entertaining.
yeah, so I think I would like to be the catalyst again because, see, that's what I think. I have a uncanny approach of, motivating people to do things. So I
Okay.
think I can be the one who can make things work without myself doing it. It's about, facilitating. So I want to be a change maker who can motivate, push, prod, and enable a lot of other people to make a difference. So I don't know what you call it. I cannot be probably a protagonist for change, probably a protagonist who can motivate others to do a change. Maybe something like that.
Some motivational autobiography of some great leader or legend, maybe. Great. That's a lovely answer. Now, on that, if you did not have to sleep for a day, what would you do with that extra time?
There are many days I have not slept because work was quite a lot. Many days. It is nothing uncommon for us. And sometimes, obviously, see, if I don't sleep, that means there are two reasons I'm not sleeping. Okay. Two, no, I would say three reasons. Okay. One is it is work, which happens many a times. Second is, there is some emergency healthcare with somebody. I'm in the hospital. So that has happened tremendously in my life. I mean, it has happened so many times. I can't tell you how many nights I've spent in hospitals. Playing whole night on the corridors, playing tash. The cards.
Right.
What happens in our area in Calcutta. So I've spent a lot of these very good government hospitals, like the the one in South Calcutta. So all this we call it PG hospital. So in PG, I spent so many nights. So that's the second one. It doesn't matter. I mean, somebody is in emergency need, I'll be there next to him or her to see whatever I can do. That's by nature. I'm nothing to boast about it. And third is I'm a big time fan of different sports. So I like right now. I mean, today is the day when you have 12:30 is a Portugal and Belgium match, and 2:30 is Brazil. I'm going to watch both, and I have to do my office tomorrow full time. So I'll be awake most of the night, but that's okay.
I didn't know that. You sort of had so many sleepless nights. But yes,
common.
There's a saying that, a life is true worth when it is laid in the service of others. And that's what you have, proven a true testimony on that. Beautiful, beautiful story. Let me, you have achieved so many things already. Is there still any other dream that is remaining you are yet to achieve?
So I think I must tell you, I'm not a person who thinks a lot about what I'm going to do in future, right? Okay. I'm a person who takes probably every day as it comes, right? So for me, it's important that whatever I'm doing today should be done well, right? And with passion, with the full commitment. So if you ask me, whole host of things to do. I mean, I can't tell you, like somebody asked me the other day, my IT friend, he says, why you work on Saturdays, Sundays? He says, why you take calls on Saturdays? I said, I don't complain. No. So he said, no, but you should not. I said, why? I mean, if I'm cribbing about it, you can tell me. He says, but, you should also think that there is a limit to work. You should also think about a retirement. When are you retiring? I said, retirement? I've never thought about it. He says, I'll retire by 45, 50 or so. He gave some numbers for it. I said, please bless me that my body should permit me to work as long as I live. Because there's so many things to do. I mean, not that everything you have to do as your own company. There are a lot of other things to do. And I am involved in a lot of other things. At some point, we can talk about that. But the amount of time you get is limited. It's only 24 hours. And in that 24 hours, you can do a limited work. So if your life or your health provides you the opportunity to do more. So I told my wife also, never think I am going to retire. As long as my health permits, I'm going to work, whether it is 2 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is. So I think people like me are somehow, because of our upbringing or whatever, we think that we have to do work, for the overall requirement, even for our own family, even for the society, even for the community, everything. I mean, there is no end to it, and we should not stop because thinking that there is no end to it, so why should I do it? You should always think that you are contributing somewhere or the other. So do that, whatever you can do, even if a small piece of drop in the ocean, that's okay, but that drop counts.
Every drop counts, because every drop eventually creates a ripple in the farther way. So it's just the accumulation.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. On that note,
don't think too much about what you want to build. Don't build castles also in the air. Go one take at a time, and if you are happy, go on building more. So
I think what counts at the end of the day, the commitment and dedication of, because extraordinary is not about doing something out of the space. It is pouring your ordinary self drop by drop in the cup and ocean of your dream. And that's what sort of defines.
Also, you are not designed to always do all the changes yourself, because you may not be that intelligent. And I have no qualms saying I may not be that intelligent to do a massive change. But whatever limited I know, if I can do a small change, that's good enough, right? So that's what
impacting that one life, impacting that one smile, impacting the one education, impacting the one health. Absolutely. I think that makes a long way. If everybody has that one small thing in a day they can contribute, I think world will be a different place to live in.
Absolutely, bang on.
On that note, my last two questions before we wrap the session: if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, what would you choose?
3 adjectives, good. I never thought about that way, but now that you've asked, I don't know. My first adjective, it's not an adjective. It's I would say, I'm lucky to be a Homo sapien. I'm a human being with a thought process, wherein I know what is good and how good can be done, and I know to make a difference of what is bad, right? So I think the nature has been kind. He has given me at least a nice, thoughtful brain to think that I can do something which is meaningful, right? So that thoughtfulness is something important. 2, I want to be humble and continue to be humble as much as possible, because I think the world is so large. You are only a tiny minuscule fraction of the entire universe. So whatever actions you do is also tiny, but remain in that tiny space and think that you are doing. So remain as humble, because you can only do whatever your heart says to do, and in the process contribute, but don't brag about it. There's nothing to brag, right? Because you think your contribution can be very effective, but let people feel and the nature accept this, that you are trying to do something which is good. 3 is I would say I like to be as cheerful as ever. So a happy going person, never ever complain much on life. That's what I should be. I mean, I'm still trying on that line. Sometimes I do complain. Sometimes I don't like it.
As a nature of human, right?
So, but yeah.
Can't be perfect all the time. But I think it's the 3 beautiful qualities which you portrayed out. And that's what has defined you so significantly. My last question before we end the session, I generally pick very tricky ones. What has been the most treasured and most embarrassing moment in your life so far?
You asked 2 questions actually. Okay. Yeah, I think treasure moment. I think when we celebrated our 10th year. Okay, and you won't believe the type of people that came in our event. It was overwhelming. I mean, the 3-4 people who spoke are, one of them is Dr. Devi Shetty, and he was kind enough. He finished his surgery and came and spoke. And to get Dr. Devi Shetty here to speak about what, the impact space. Second is to have Mr. Ghosh, Chandrasekhar Ghosh, come in and speak. And there were a few other like Vindhya, Pavitra, and Veena Mankar also spoke. And then our chairman and I and Eric, all of us spoke. So I think to see the gathering, you won't believe the hall was full. It was so many people who came to be part of our journey, to celebrate with us the 10 years. That's when we felt that, yes, we have done something. Yes, the gratitude, the feeling that, all these years of 10 years of working hard has shown the results. So many people came from Bombay, from Delhi, and we are a small investment bank.
People accepted our invitation to come all the way, and we didn't pay for anybody's fare. We didn't give them the hotels to stay. It was not like it was a sponsored event or anything. Everybody came on their own. It was very humbling. It was amazingly humbling when we were there, and to have these stalwarts with us. Many of the Bangalore's biggies were there in that event. So I think we were blessed, absolutely blessed. To have that celebration. That was a testament that we did something really good. We did something which was needed in this industry, which we did something about setting up a good institutions for people to follow. So that was humbling. That was definitely humbling, and one of the most, I think, embarrassing part. Too many of them actually. How much I could make fool of myself is that one of my trusted lieutenants is Amit Ati, who leads the investment bank now. He and I were traveling for a pitch to Trivandrum, and we were in the security enclosure, and that day the speech was important, and both of us saw another investor there, which was Ganesh from Kona Capital. We were discussing on the lounge about, not in the lounge, even the waiting area, the security hold, about certain things, and the security gate was like 2 blocks away or two doors away, right? And we were so involved or engaged in the discussion that we missed our flight. So it was so embarrassing that sitting with an investor, going for a pitch for some other company, and we missed the flight. It was very, very embarrassing. I mean, my team still pulls me for that. That how can you do that? I mean,
oh my God,
Amit and I were like so.
Then did you manage eventually to go for the pitch?
No, finally that deal also, was they didn't go for capital raise, but obviously we called up because there was no flight for Trivandrum that day, so we missed.
Oh no!
So that was a very, very hilarious.
So engrossed in the conversation, how to do it, that you forgot the flight is waiting.
Yeah, the investor met him. He was going to Bombay, so we were chatting, and we missed it.
Wow, lovely. Thank you so much. It's been a very powerful session. Thank you for sharing this personal journey. Thank you for sharing your success sutra. Thank you for sharing those humbling moments. And thank you for sharing all that powerful thing which you do in bits and pieces. I'm sure it will motivate many, many people to come forward and work for the social impactful projects. Really appreciate this 1 hour time on a Sunday morning. And thank you once again for accepting my invite and coming to my show.
Thank you, Sangeeta. It's wonderful. I mean, you are a superwoman. I always say you this, that you are creating a lot of impact. Like apart from your job, you do so many things. So I always wonder, as such women have a lot in their hand to manage their family. Like we men are very bad at it. So managing kids, managing family, and and husband is also like a kid. You have to manage him as well. So after doing all this, you have a full-time job and you do all these other things. So you are a superwoman. So
thank you so much. That's really humbling. Thank you so much.
Amazing. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
It's a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you for watching. We come back more and more every Sunday. Stay tuned.